Hey guys, RVA Bourbon back. Doing a little quick blind tasting tonight. Again, if you can hear music, that's not my music. Um, these are just four blind bourbons that I have not opened, so I have no idea what they are. I just said give me four bottles that I haven't opened yet. Could be a $20 bottle of bourbon. Um, on up above $100 bottle of bourbon. So I have no idea. But I'm going to go ahead and get this started with the first one. Little candy corn in there. High proof. Higher proof, I believe. Yeah. Higher proof. Um, just from smelling the notes. Candy corn and a chocolate covered strawberry. It's not a high proof. It smelled like a high proof, but it's not a high proof. Smooth, easy going. A good tasting bourbon up front. Doesn't really have much finish, much taste finish. Um, it's got a little burn after. Actually, now that I've sipped it twice. That's a difficult one because that was a delayed feeling. Like I had two sips of it and I felt like there wasn't a lot to it, and now there's a lot to it. So I'm gonna guess that that's a 100 proof bourbon. Above 93, below 100 would be my guess. Pretty good. Pretty good bourbon. Number two. No smell at all. Dead smell. Not that it smells dead, just no smell at all. Uh, what is that? It's almost like you could smell the barley in this for some reason. The corn and barley. Oh, that's different. That's different, and I don't know that I like it. Has a flat smell. I would still say corn, barley is what I smell in it. It's a little proofy, and I don't like the taste of that. When I when I reveal that, don't buy that one. My guess is that's a cheap whiskey, and I have a cheap bourbon, and I have some cheap bourbons that I hadn't opened. So that to me tastes like a cheap bourbon, but we'll see. It could be something expensive. I don't know, but I did not like that one. Number three. There's a cherry. Sweet cherry bubblegum smell. Doesn't smell high proof, but I don't care for that either. Wow. It's two back-to-back just weird tasting bourbons. Man, I'm gonna say that's a cheap bourbon. Batting 1,000 here tonight. All right, number 4. Oh, that's sweet, man. Oh my Jesus. That is flat out milk chocolate, dark chocolate. Ooh, that smells good. Like a honeysuckle. Almost like a beehive honey. And tastes like a honey. These last 3 are not your typical bourbons. That number 1 is a typical bourbon. These last 3 are not your typical bourbons. This has such a sugar smell to it. Like just sugar. A lot of taste up front. That's not as bad as 2 and 3. Gives you that little bit of burn. All right, I'm gonna go back through number 4, which I said was really sweet. Really sweet, honeysuckle, like a honeysuckle dipped in chocolate. Honeysuckle and just honey. That is not a typical like bourbon taste either. It'll be interesting to see what these are. Man, that is sugary sweet, like cotton candy sweet. And if you tried it, you'd probably say, there's nothing sweet about that. But as you develop that palate for bourbon, you'll be able to taste a good bourbon from a bad bourbon. I say that. You may have a different taste than me. But for me, that's a good bourbon. Now that I sit here, there's a lot of burn in the neck. I'd say that's a little bit of a proofy bourbon too, probably 100 proof. Now I'm anxious to try these 2 that I didn't care for again as I go back through and see if I don't care for them again. And then I'll tell you, don't buy that bourbon. This doesn't smell bad. It actually smells like your typical bourbon. A little bit better going back through. So maybe the palate has to adjust a little bit better. It'll be interesting to see. Still a different tasting bourbon. A little cleaner. My guess is maybe that could be a rye bourbon right there. Or a rye. So, some of the bottles I have are straight Kentucky bourbon, which has 51% corn. A lot of times as much as 88% corn. And then it has some barley and some rye, or some barley and some wheat. A rye has, the majority is rye. It's usually over 51% of rye. Higher, like 75% rye in a straight rye. And that could be a straight rye. That's why I'm tasting a very different taste. But not bad as the first time I went through. This is number 2. No. That's not for me. It's very different. I actually have one bottle of whiskey up there. And my guess is that would be the whiskey. The one bottle of whiskey, which is, it's an Uncle Nearest 1856. We'll know in a minute, but I believe this is a whiskey. This is not, I don't believe this is a bourbon, but I could be wrong. It's my only bottle of whiskey that's up there. It was given to me as a gift. As much appreciated. I will say that it has a strong corn taste to it. But that will be my last place for sure. Back to number 1, which I think ultimately, as I went through, was the most genuine. 1 and 4 were the most genuine bourbon tasting. And that's going to be my number 1. So, I'm going to give you the winners and losers. So, my last place, and I'm anxious to see if this is the whiskey, then number 2, honey. It is. So I was correct. It's the only bottle of whiskey that I own. Uncle Nearest 1856. I had actually heard great things about it. There is another bourbon guy that does videos, and he put this in he is actually a professional taster. He is a taster at the San Francisco awards, when they do yearly awards for best bourbon. He actually put this in with his tastings, and he had this, I want to say, in his top 5 of best whiskey bourbons that he tasted. It is not mine. This is not my thing. As I do appreciate it because it was a gift. You can just tell the difference that was not a bourbon. That's very different tasting. Just means this hasn't been aged 4 years in the United States. So if I read the back of it, it would probably tell me how many years it's been aged, but I'll figure it out. I don't see it on here really quick, but so that was my last place. So my third place is actually number 3, which would be Old Scout. Wow. A lot of people like this. Wasn't a bad whiskey. I just didn't think it was great. It's just a straight bourbon. It's distilled in Indiana. But anyway, that's the reason that it's not a Kentucky bourbon. It's distilled in Indiana, and it's a West Virginia bourbon. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but what I'm reading is it's a West Virginia bourbon, but it was distilled in Indiana. Just tells me it's batch 15. Old Scout, straight bourbon, was my third place. So we'll go to this actually could have gone either way. I liked number 4. After I drank it, I liked it. Number 4 is okay. There's the reason for the different taste to it, but that's a good bourbon. I like that. This is barrel bourbon, Dovetail. So Dovetail, I can't remember the actual. It is. I'll read it to you. It's finished in rum, port, wine, and Cabernet wine barrels. So that's how it's finished. So meaning it's it's cask strength, which is 122 proof. A lot of people love this stuff. I mean, it was good for me tonight. Wasn't great, but it was good. It could have won had I gone back and forth maybe another time between 1 and 4, but I liked it. And Barrel Bourbon they do a lot of crazy stuff. Like they'll do infinite barrels where they take a 12, a 13, and a 15 year, and you get a little bit of one, a little bit of the other, a little bit of the other, put it all into one. Now, Barrel Bourbon, actually at the San Francisco Awards this year, I believe they won Best Bourbon with a it's called Batch 21 is their bourbon that won. It was either first place or second place in Best Bourbon. So that Batch 21 from Barrel Bourbon for 2020 was definitely very good. I mean, you got some of the best tasters in the world out there. So for them to pick that Batch 21, and I think last year it was in the top 2 as well. So if you can find that Batch 21, I haven't been able to find it. I'd love to have it just to taste it. I'm going to taste this again at some point because I've heard good things about it and I liked it. The 2 that I didn't like could have, kind of messed with my palate a little bit, but Anyway. Alright, and my number one tonight. I said this will be a short video, and I'm rambling on. My number one, that is a rye, is Michter Straight Rye. If you're going to make a old-fashioned, this supposedly is the go-to for an old-fashioned. Most ryes are go-tos for old-fashioned. They just say they make a better old-fashioned. Michter Straight Rye, I enjoyed it. I like it. Took a little bit of time to get down to me, but solid choice tonight. So anyway, short video, ended up being long, but there you go. Thanks.